Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
When people hear the word whey protein, they usually automatically correlate that with working out. And certainly we know that that amino acid blend is very beneficial for the maintaining of our skeletal muscle, so for muscle mass. And of course, people who work out are going to require higher amounts of that to really get the achieved outcome from their extensive weightlifting, for example. But we also have to recognize that whey protein in particular does so many things for our overall health. And this is what I want to focus in on today, is going beyond that of the exercise benefits. So I am Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, and let's talk about whey protein. I want to discuss how whey protein and all of the amino acids contained within the whey protein isolate that we offer. We have a chocolate as well as vanilla. So for whoever's, a chocolate fan, we've got you covered. If you're a vanilla fan, we have you covered as well. Now, oftentimes I will say, utilizing either one of those and making your own smoothie is usually a really good way, because you can add in, fruits and vegetables to this and really increase that antioxidant punch. Plus, you're getting the fiber coming from the fruits and vegetables. So it's just an option. And remember, you can always go to our website, invitehealth.com, and look at any of those recipes that we have. But maybe take a scoop of the vanilla and add in some, it's the summertime. You can add in some fresh blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, whatever you're liking, and mix that up maybe with some coconut milk, and it really can pack a powerful punch. So you're getting all of those branch-chain amino acids, which is the leucine, isoleucine, the valine, and we're getting all of the other amino acids that are contained within the whey protein isolate. Now, what makes the isolate different is it's had the fat and the lactose removed from that. And that's very important, because for people who have certain GI sensitivities, the fat from whey protein concentrate can actually irritate your GI tract. So by utilizing the isolate form, you are just getting that amino acid blend. And so this is really, really powerful stuff. So you're getting the tryptophan and the tyrosine. And remember, each one of those individual amino acids helps to regulate and control multiple different functions in the body. When we think about tryptophan, for example, we know that plays a role with serotonin and melatonin production. When we think of tyrosine, we know that plays a role with proper metabolism and thyroid function. So all of the different amino acids that are contained within the protein isolate really do more than just help muscles. And if it was just muscles alone, hey, that's great, because we always want to be able to offset sarcopenia or age-related muscle mass loss, which occurs for a variety of different reasons. We can look at more profound systemic inflammation that occurs as we get older, but we can also look at the shift in dietary intake of foods as we get older. So we have less absorption because we don't have as many digestive enzymes that are being produced, which is why it's advantageous to use something like digestive HX as we get older to make sure that we can really take in all of those wonderful nutrients from the foods that we're eating. But then we also have to look at, generally speaking, as we get older, our caloric intake begins to go down. Maybe you're not having as large a portions, which for many people that may be a good thing, but not having as large a portion. So this is why we can see higher rates of sarcopenia, or that age-related muscle mass loss. But what I really want to focus in on is the way in which whey protein isolate can be beneficial when it comes to the aging process and we think about cognition and we think about memory. Well, one of the things that we know that the whey protein can do is it can help to optimize not only our muscle mass and our bone mass, but also when we think about our immune function. Remember, we're getting all of those really important amino acids, and they help to support the gut microbiome. But then we look at the science behind how it is that the whey protein is actually working to support the brain. Well, one of the things that we know is this was a really interesting study that was done a few years ago over in Australia, and it was published in the Nutrients Journal. But they looked at the impact of whey protein isolate on cognitive function, especially those who had, say, early onset dementia or mild cognitive impairment, but they also had a low vitamin B12 status. So they checked their serum vitamin B12 levels, then they gave them whey protein isolate, and they found that this actually helped to improve their B12 and their folate levels. So think about that. The consumption of whey protein isolate significantly improved their B12 and their folate levels. We know that both of those B vitamins are integral to maintaining cognitive function as we get older, which is why oftentimes I talk about our methyl B formulation, because it has those activated B12 and activated folate in that. But we know that whey protein helps the body be able to utilize that B12 and that folate. So there was that study that came out, and they saw the impact of how whey protein supplementation helped with that cognitive function. Now, it was doing this by a couple of different mechanisms, one of which was through the regulation of homocysteine. Because remember the importance of those B vitamins when it comes to maintaining good homocysteine levels. If we have high homocysteine, we know that that's an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease as well as cognitive decline, because it's creating vascular inflammation. So the more inflammation you have going up to the brain, the worse we're going to do when it comes to cognitive function. So that was an interesting study. But they did another study where they were looking at the tryptophan and the tyrosine contained within the whey protein isolate and how this seemed to play a role in cognitive performance. Now remember, I had already mentioned tryptophan plays it's a precursor. You have to have tryptophan to make serotonin and then hence melatonin. And we have to have tyrosine in order to make our thyroid hormones. So if we're lacking those, then that's a problem. So like I said, it can affect serotonin, so mood, but it can also impact our metabolic rate. So if our metabolism starts getting a little screwy, then that can certainly impact our brain functionality. So in this particular study, once again published in the Nutrients Journal, they were discussing how previous epidemiological and clinical studies have shown that whey protein can be beneficial for cognitive decline. So people who are experiencing dementia and cognitive decline, and when they gave them the whey protein, they found that they improved. Now, part of that is, remember, we look at that B12 and the folate, but the other part came down to enhancing serotonin and helping to support proper metabolism. And in doing this helped to improve short-term memory, long-term memory, and this is really key because as we get older, we certainly start to recognize that there are some different shifts that occur within the neuronal connections in the brain. So remember I talked about how, enzymatic activity starts to go down, and so we're not absorbing as many nutrients from our food, so we may not be getting adequate amino acids coming from our foods because we're just not digesting them properly. So this is why whey protein, we're getting those back into the system in a higher amount, so they are able to make their way up to the brain and to support cognitive function. And they've done many different studies that have looked at the individual amino acids contained within whey protein isolate that really do pack a powerful punch when it comes to supporting our memory. And these are double-blind, placebo-controlled trials. And they have recognized that when you start to create this balance, once again, of amino acid status in the body, everything starts to function properly. And it doesn't take too much to really recognize why that would be when we think about the role of each individual amino acid and what they're actually doing. We think about arginine, for example, and understanding that arginine is doing a very important thing in the body, which is helping to release nitric oxide. So the more vasodilation, the better blood flow, better oxygenation up to the brain. Then we look at the tryptophan, helping to support proper neurotransmitter release. And then they've also actually recognized that a lot of these amino acids have their own potential benefit, not just for the different pathways in which they are needed for. They've actually recognized that these amino acids play a role as an antioxidant. And so what do we know about antioxidants? We know that they help to fend off oxidative stress, which can do damage to the mitochondria, which can lower our cognitive function. So study just done this year, and this was an animal study, but really quite interesting, and once again published in the Nutrients Journal, looking at the antioxidant effects of whey protein on learning and memory. And in the way that they did the study, they were looking at many different markers and mechanisms by which they know our cognitive function can decline. So they were looking at different markers for inflammation, for example. They were looking at acetylcholine production, and they found that the amino acid blend from whey protein isolate actually helped to enhance the way that the body could synthesize acetylcholine, which is our primary neurotransmitter when it comes to memory. At the same time, it had the ability to reduce inflammatory factors such as tumor necrosis factor alpha, as well as interleukin 1, for example. So there's so much out there when we think about the aging process and many unknowns still. However, we do know that just at a basic level, trying to maintain omega-3s, vitamin D, vitamin C, B12, folate levels, and amino acid levels do so much in terms of just basic everyday function of our neurons in our brain. And so this is why I wanted to talk about whey protein in this light today, so that we understand that it goes far beyond that of just pumping up our muscles. We know from a study that was done in Brazil when they gave whey protein to heart failure patients that it wasn't about the muscular support, but they actually found that it helped to improve microvascular function. So we're talking about endothelial cells. Remember, those are the cells that line the vessels. So think about that just for a moment. Think about that vasodilation that is supported through that arginine in the whey protein isolate. And they found that when they gave these heart failure patients whey protein, they had significant improvement in their cardiovascular function. And this is via that way of endothelial support. And they said it's because of the arginine content. So that just came out. So we know all of these multiple benefits that go along with whey protein. So I wanted to talk about that so you understand that maybe you don't go to the gym every day and lift weights and you think, well, maybe I don't need whey protein. But indeed, we know that the whey protein is doing so many different things in terms of providing us with antioxidants, helping to support all of these different metabolic pathways, easing inflammation, targeting those neurotransmitters for proper release, helping to support metabolism, and doing so many things for our overall health and wellness. So that is all that I have for you for today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Invite Health podcast. Remember, you can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. Now, do make sure that you subscribe and you leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we will see you next time for another episode of the Invite Health podcast.